Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today, Tacitus, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about some frontline examples of how affirmative action is destroying the very fabric of Western business and the ability of Western business to create new wealth. Now, at the moment, wealth is being transferred holus bolus to the globalists, and the illusion of wealth is still maintained by allowing easy credit to purchase consumer goods and so on. This is becoming increasingly under pressure given the high cost of living for the essentials of life at the moment all across the Western world, which is no coincidence because the increases in cost of living are being squeezed almost exactly the same rate in a number of countries, Western countries at the same time, particularly the Anglosphere. And again in Sydney, Australia, for someone on the average wage, even having a very modest rental accommodation, you're looking at spending between 50 and 60% of your wage on rent. So that gives you an idea of the effect of cost of living on people. But there's a reason why the cost of living is increasing at a fast rate and why there's very little new wealth creation. And so I want to talk a bit about that. Now, as I've mentioned many times before, I've got a share in a business. So now I'm more an investor than a worker there, but part of sort of given if something comes up where my expertise is going to be helpful or useful, or if we hire someone even on a short-term basis, it's going to be quite expensive, then I might jump into the gap and do the work. So from time to time, I end up in the front line, on the front line, or if someone's off sick or something like that. So, and I've increased that really in the last 12 months or so. Now, on top of everything, it often gives me some good raw material for what I see on the front line going out and about. It gives me some good raw material for doing videos. So there's kind of if you like, another motivation to it. But I want to talk about affirmative action in particular here. So, and I'll use just two or three examples. And this is me, all suited up and the hair sort of done and dyed. And his hair's going white these days, or silvery sort of white. So I'm starting to dye my hair a bit. I hope that's not too vain. Anyway, so we're we're going out to this meeting. We're meeting the CEO of well, it's not a huge organisation. It'd be less than 500 people, I would think, and or maybe about 500 people. So we're meeting the CEO and the Chief Operations Officer, and we're helping them with some sort of legal contractual type, commercial contract type stuff. So we're there, and I haven't been sort of doing the phones and whatnot, and haven't been involved in the initial discussions here, but I've looked at the paperwork and the emails going back and forth. So we arrive, and the subject of the meeting is going to be probably more in my area of expertise than my business partners. So anyway, a lady comes out, I don't know, mid-40s or something like that, and she mentions that the Chief Operating Officer isn't coming. So we'll just have to do with one person. We assumed, or I assumed at least, so did one of my colleagues, but I assumed that she was maybe the receptionist, or maybe just a junior sort of administrator. She just had no sophistication about her. This was someone of minimal sophistication, minimal understanding of business and commercial issues, and minimal grasp of the key issues that would have been fundamental to what we were talking about. So, and nor was it a case that she just didn't bone up on it beforehand, or didn't read the emails or something. It wasn't that. She just didn't have the intellect, the knowledge, or the experience to grasp what was about to be discussed and what was the subject matter of the meeting. So I was a little sort of, so I just assumed she was a junior. I thought, well, where's the CEO? And I guess because you don't want to say, look, are you the CEO or not? Or, you don't want to be too sort of, I don't know, blunt or abrupt or anything. So we sort of humoured her. We're talking to her, and I'm assuming that the CEO is going to come in any minute. And the CEO was a woman, by the way. We knew that. and she hadn't given us a card or told us her name. And then we sort of started to push the issue, and we're sure no one else is coming to the meeting. No, you'll have to do with me, and I'm the CEO, so that's going to have to be good enough. And we were aghast that this woman was the CEO. Now, one of the legal contractual issues they wanted is they're looking at, I suppose, hiring or merging with another organisation, and that they want that they're going to have a new CEO for the merger, and they want to, if you like, an employment contract sort of template for the next or the incoming level of C-level executives. So she's going to be moving on, and other people are going to be coming in. She's been there a few years as CEO. So anyway, this is there, and she's talking about a very stringent sort of selection process. But again, she didn't seem to really understand it, and so she couldn't really answer the questions. It was, I don't know, yeah, I suppose, and well, yeah, it could be, if that makes sense. Yeah, does that make sense? And so she talked like again, like a receptionist, and she just didn't have anywhere near the sophistication that, and the position pays something like $500,000 a year, so they could have got some top flight people for that type of money, but they had her. So I thought, okay, let's change this around. You're talking about a very stringent process, but one that's equally remarkably vague. So what are you going to do? Like, how did you come into the organisation? Could that be a template? So we're trying to talk around it again, and we're sort of clutching here because she doesn't know, and she's not giving us a whole lot in the way of guidance. Again, a low intellect, low sophisticated person. So she said, oh, well, I know so-and-so, and he gave me a call, and they said that they'd appoint me as an interim CEO, and that's what I've been for the last 3 years, on all full salary and full benefits. And because she's an interim CEO, she was avoiding performance reviews. And so the various people on the board of directors, protecting her. And that's it. So they were obviously installing her for a purpose. She was signing off, I imagine, on lavish overseas expenditure and trips and junkets and things like that. I suppose maybe they needed somebody for that. Their expenses did seem to be a bit out of control, I thought. But anyway, so this is a case here where somebody who is absolutely manifestly unqualified to be in the role, manifestly so, and who is providing protection for people that are, as best I can tell, ripping off the business like fuck, and putting this money in their pockets, or again, using it on spending on lavish overseas junkets. And because of the merger, they're now going to lose that capacity to engage in those sort of self-serving pursuits. And so they're now thinking, shit, we've got to have actually a proper framework in place. I would imagine that the organisation they're merging with is demanding these standards of probity. I would think it's coming from that. But then you look at their revenue source, and their revenue source is, at about the time she arrives, they suddenly get a lot of government contracts. So it's shortly before, from looking at the timeline. So vast taxpayer money is being diverted into the pockets of this organisation that is doing very little in terms of returning value. So the taxpayer is being ripped off big time. There's nothing really being produced or delivered that is giving value to the taxpayer or the community. When they've been given, if you like, an enforced temporary monopoly in a certain area, so they can then overcharge people for the services they deliver. The government is in effect saying, well, if you want accreditation, you have to go here. And so it's actually a round robin of monopolies, overpricing, taxpayer money being blown and wasted. And in order to sort of protect that, what in my view is cronyism and corruption of purpose, the whole thing, in order to protect that, they have to put affirmative action people, dumbass people, but pay them the top dollar that a competent person would get. So every conceivable way, loss of wealth, squandering of money, frittering away of opportunity. A business that could have been viable and done well has been exhausted just because there was a bunch of people on the board of directors that wanted to line their pockets and this is very much the globalist thing. Sell out your company, sell out your citizens, sell out your country, sell out while you stuff money into your pocket. Now, the limited exposure we had to some of the board of director members, they're just sort of well-connected people. They just know the right people in political circles, and they know how to call up their political mates and get favors and get appointments to boards and so on. And this is very much part of that sort of corrupt patronage crony capitalism process, which is where I think it's the interim phase, if you like, capitalism to crony capitalism to globalization, or full globalization of and thus serfdom for the Western population. So, and it's very disappointing to see, and sometimes it irritates me to the point where you're sitting down talking to this low IQ, incompetent affirmative action flunky who's being paid with benefits and trip travel and so on. She'd be on over $600,000 a year, which is not a massive salary, or not in Sydney anymore. But gee whiz, for somebody like her, her real level of wealth, her real level of income would be, not sort of somewhere around a tenth of that in reality. She's a simple, basic person, compliant, I'm sure, with what she's, she signs what's put in front of her and that sort of stuff. But you can't even have a basic business conversation with somebody that stupid, who also doesn't have the expertise anyway. Now, if she'd been through, had the expertise but wasn't that bright, but was intent on trying, then you could say, well, that'll kind of work. We'll muddle through on that basis. But she wasn't interested. And look, I've got the right sort of connections. I can get a well-paying, prestigious job anytime I want. So why do I need to know anything? Why do I need to work hard? Why should I give a shit? And that's very much the attitude. Now, here's another one. It's in a similar vein, because it's sort of affirmative action, if you like, that leads to affirmative action. So we're doing some work for a CEO of a company. Again, big government contracts just suddenly appeared out of nowhere, and the company grew from a handful of people to many hundreds of people, all on the back of these government contracts. And so they put the squeeze on him for affirmative action hires and so on. He ducked around the issue, this guy, by hiring all his sisters and his nieces and his wife, all this sort of thing, to build up the amount of women in the company. So it was, but here's the guy now. He's at best someone who could run like a corner store or a corner shop. That's the limit of his capacity. And the fact he had got all these government contracts is quite beyond me. But anyway, he got them. So the place is out of control. His administration of it, it's just it's a mess. So he's decided, quite rightly, and I'm sure somebody's put him up to this, but he's quite rightly, he actually needs like a deputy CEO to sort of run the place. Now, he wants to keep all the glory, and if there's a ribbon cutting where he can get his face in the paper, he still wants to do those things. And he still wants to live the high life and plunder the business to do it. But in terms of making decisions, he's very nervous about that he'll fuck it up if he has to make decisions. So he wants if you like, an experienced guy to go and do it. He's not really paying enough money for that, in my view, but this is his thing. So he's talking it through with us, and that came as we were doing other stuff for him, but we're sitting down having a chat, and this comes up in conversation. He's a nice guy. I mean, really, if you're sort of out somewhere, you go, hey, do you have time for a coffee or something? He's a nice guy to talk to and everything, but he's incredibly out of his depth, and boy, does it show. It's embarrassing, actually. It's that bad. So he's getting the deputy CEO. So he's telling us how he's going to go about it. Now, he's got some little 19-year-old. Oh, she's not that snot-nosed, actually. We met a 19-year-old sort of HR punk, little girly in HR, and he's decided that it's going to be all procedural. It's going to be bureaucratic procedures. For a guy who's as inefficient, as ineffective, and all over the place, and he suddenly decided when it comes to this, it's going to be bureaucratic processes to the nth degree. So he's decided that these deputies, he's going to run adverts, all this sort of thing. This deputy CEO role, he's going to give the job of selecting the final shortlist to this 19-year-old HR girl who's got like 3 months work experience in her whole life and has got some accreditation from some like 10th tier fucking college. And he's telling us about this, and he's acquired a few little sayings and phrases that just show what a fucking amateur he is. So I sort of mentioned this. Well, do you think the sort of level of people that you're going to need and want in the role? Do you think they'll be particularly impressed with having to go through, interviews by a 19-year-old punk with no real work experience, and certainly no even vague comprehension of the sort of decisions that are made at that level? Would you say that that's really going to work? Maybe you'll scare away potential candidates. Have you thought of that? Oh, well, if they can't get on with a 19-year-old girl, they can't get on with anybody, so I don't want them. You fucking moron. So I tried to, or we tried, a couple of my colleagues who were there at the time, we tried to suggest to him, well, maybe that's not the right thing. Maybe, sure, she can check, the 19-year-old can check maybe the CVs to ensure that they're bona fide applicants or something. It might be that, but then you need to make, as the CEO, they're going to report directly to you. You need to make that decision. Oh no, and he obviously just didn't have the confidence. He just was completely lacking in the confidence to do that. He was too scared that he would front the meeting, the interview, and there'd be this high-powered, kick-ass sort of dude, and they're across the table, and he's nowhere near at their level. And he didn't want to be embarrassed, so he wanted to run the power game of, you have to grovel to the 19-year-old girlie here, and only after you've groveled and begged, will I see you, the big man, after you've been humiliated by the 19-year-old punk. And he very much wanted to go through that ritual, which for him was a way of making sure that these people were going to be grovelly, if I can use the word grovelly enough, to come and see, come and meet him for the final thing. And then he was thinking, he said, my wife's a really good judge of character. I think I might get her to really do that the first sort of serious level interviews. Then I might hire a psychometric organisation to make sure that. And by now I'm rolling my eyes, thinking, you fucking amateur. But this is the consequence of affirmative action. For some reason, this guy is light brown, and I think that was the reason why he got given this government contract. But again, vast waste of taxpayer money. They forced on him that you have to hire lots of black people and women, and proverbially black lesbians. It's got out of control. So now this utterly incompetent guy, way out of his depth, is then going through a process that only a two-bit amateur would do. But he doesn't. He sees it as a power dynamic. He sees that his self-esteem is on the line, that his prestige is that's all he sees. He doesn't see the commercial reality of things. And so I suggested to him quite strongly, so you don't really want to go down this path. It won't serve you. If you get someone prepared to tolerate that level of humiliation, they're not going to be a fucking worthwhile. You're going to choose someone based on their ability or based on their childlike capacity, if you will, to look at you with wide puppy dog eyes. And that's not the criteria you need. You need somebody to make decisions, and obviously with your authority. But that's what you need. You don't need 19-year-old girls with 3 months work experience deciding who the next CEO is going to be. That's insane. But I don't think I got anywhere. And when you get a certain level of amateurism, then that's what you get. And the reality is that there was a time, not everybody, but you had to work your way through this. You had to prove yourself in various steps along the way, as indeed I did. and prove you can get the job done and do the job professionally, do it well, and so on and so on, do it responsibly. And that class of people, which are nearly all straight white males, that class of people is being wrung out of, eradicated, crushed out of our commercial operations, and we're left with two-bit idiots like the ones I've mentioned in this video. You've been fantastic today. Your Pushback channel. Thank you for joining me.